Alrighty, let's head over to our main topic today, which is our NBA Power Rankings. We update this every Friday, and today's Friday, y'all. So here we go. Going to update our Power Rankings going into this week. Here's where our standings were. We got Hawks at 10, Mavs at 9, Heat at 8, Bucks at 7, 76ers at 6, Blazers at 5, Jazz at 4, Suns at 3, Nuggets at 2, and the Nets, the best team in the league going into this week. And we've had a real interesting week, especially these last kind of 2-3 days that really just are kind of determining the top 5 here in the last couple of days. So perfect timing. Back third of the season after the trade deadline, where everybody's really kind of hammering down on what their team is with their new players, with their kind of loss of some players. Everybody's kind of making that final push towards the back end of the season to solidify a top 6 seed to guarantee themselves in the playoffs and not try to kind of worry about a play-in tournament. So a absolutely great week here. A lot of teams showing what they're capable of and kind of saying, hang on, we're actually real contenders out here. We've got no problem going against the best of the best and winning. So that's the top 10 going into this week. We'll go from number 10 all the way up to number 1 with the new teams and the new places. But I do kind of want to first go on. We do have 3 teams exiting the top 10. We won't tell you who the 3 new teams are until we get to their position, but we'll tell you why we're moving some teams out of the top 10. So the first team we're moving out of the top 10, unfortunately, is the Heat. Now, it's nothing of what they've done. This last week, they went 2-1. They beat the Cavs and the Lakers. Really just no great wins there. I mean, the Cavs absolutely not good, and the Lakers obviously not good without their big pieces. Now, they did have Andre Drummond in for that game, but I mean, they didn't even have Kyle Kuzma for that game. So it's not a great win for the Heat. It's still a win, and we don't want to penalize them for kind of, doing what they're supposed to do, but we've just seen better teams start to step it up and maybe win a little bit more games or against a little bit of better competition. So the Heat are exiting the power rankings here. There are number 8s coming into this week. It's just truly unfortunate that that some other teams were a little bit better than them this week. They also lost to the Grizzlies this week, their best competition they faced this week. So if they beat the Grizzlies, we would have kept them in, but unfortunately they did lose. So we had to knock the Heat out of the top 10. We're also, and we might get some slack on this one, but we don't care, honestly. We are moving the Bucks out of the top 10. Giannis not playing these last 2 games and them not winning those 2 games. I mean, and they weren't even hard competition. It wasn't like something that like, oh my goodness, there's no way. It's not like they were going against the Nuggets or the Nets or the Suns or the Jazz. They went against the Warriors, and then who was it last night? They just lost to, I hate this website, so trash sometimes. They just lost to the Mavericks last night. I mean, still without Giannis. I mean, can we get somebody to step up on that team? Chris Middleton played awful last night, so I'm a little over the Bucks a little bit. If you don't have Giannis, you instantly flounder and can't win. If your team is held together by only one player, I'm kind of over it. The Nets were winning without Kevin Durant the entire season, and Kyrie Irving in and out of the lineup, and now James Harden in and out of the lineup, and they're still winning. They're still deep. They still all step it up. So I'm very over the Bucks. We're knocking them out of the top 10. They were only number 7 here. So, I mean, now Giannis is back tonight. So, coming this week till next Friday, they can get back in the top 10. But for what they did this week, I mean, absolutely not good. They went officially 2-2. They beat the Blazers and the Kings. But then, without Giannis, they lose to the Warriors and the Mavericks. So just absolutely nothing good there. And I'm over them. So we're knocking them out of the top 10. And then the other team we're knocking out of the top 10, which is definitely hurting me a lot. But, I mean, this was the week for them to kind of prove something to us, and they did not do it. And it's a big letdown in the MVP category, and it's a big letdown here in our power rankings because they were number 5 here, folks. The Portland Trail Blazers are out of the top 10. I mean, a real tough week for them. They lost to the Bulls, they lost to the Clippers, and they lost to the Jazz. Those are three teams that we needed to see them. Or no, they lost to the Bucks. They lost to the Clippers and the Jazz, not the Bulls. Wrong B team. So Blazers losing to the Bucks, inexcusable. Losing to the Clippers, inexcusable. Losing to the Jazz, inexcusable. And these are kind of blowout losses. Not like, oh my goodness, they lost by 2 on a buzzer beater. Nothing like that. So truly unfortunate here by the Blazers. If you're not going to beat the best teams, if you're not going to at least be competitive against the best teams, I can't keep you in the power rankings. The only team that they beat this week was the Thunder. No Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, no Dort, okay. So truly, truly big disappointment here by the Blazers. Damian Lillard couldn't get it done. The bench couldn't get it done. Norman Powell tried. He was trying out there. He was looking real good for this team, but it's something with Damian Lillard, with other great shooters on the floor with him, they don't win games because of that, and it's truly annoying to watch, and that's why his MVP case is slowly starting to go down, which is truly unfortunate. This was his time to kind of win MVP because he was kind of front-runner MVP when he was winning games single-handedly without kind of CJ McCollum out there and no Yusuf Nurkic. But ever since they got back, they don't know how to win. Nurkic isn't even looking that great out there, and Damian Lillard can't do everything that he does. So Blazers out of the top 10. Heat out of the top 10 and the Bucks out of the top 10, and let's see who's going to take their spots here. So here we go, starting at 10, working our way up to number 1. Let's see if the Nets get dethroned this week. So here we go. A new number 10 team, folks, and I freaking love this team. I love this team so much. Here we go. The new number 10 team is the Bulls. Yes, sir. Love it. Love it. Alrighty, this past week, they went 3-1. They beat the Nets, the Pacers, and the Raptors. They're on a 3-game winning streak. Their loss was against the Jazz, and it was still a competitive loss. I mean, they only lost by 7. I'll give it to them. That's not bad, especially when they have it won with Vucevic in the lineup up until that point. So I'll give it to him. That kind of really started off their winning streak, getting a close loss against the Jazz. Vucevic is working very well with Zach LaVine. It's not kind of like an Aaron Gordon situation where Aaron Gordon just can't get great production when Vucevic is having great production there. They're winning games here, 3 straight games, and Thaddeus Young is having some solid contribution here to the starting lineup now that he's back, or now that he is in the starting lineup here for the Bulls. I love it. He's a great number 4 for this team. And then off the bench, they're having decent success. Kobe White is decently getting it done. We just saw Daniel Tice last night absolutely get it done, and I'm all about this Bulls team. They made some absolutely fantastic moves here in the at the trade deadline. Lauri Markkanen absolutely getting it done, and same thing with Kobe White. So this is a decently good team. You got the big 3 up there. I'm including Thaddeus Young in a big 3. This man's getting great production for his age out here. He's still getting it done. Love it. Potential 6th man of the year candidate, depending on how many games he's going to end up winding with in the starting rotation now that he's in the starting rotation now. But either way, got great production from Thaddeus Young off the bench, now getting it done in the starting lineup as well. And like I said, the bench of just Kobe White and Daniel Tice. Daniel Tice is thriving on this team. He's having, I mean, where he can kind of come in and come off the bench and just get that great production. Where he had to be the man in the Celtics, he really couldn't get it done. He was decent there in the starting lineup of the Celtics, but nothing great. And then off this bench here, he's still getting that same great production that he had for the starters of the Celtics, but now doing it for the bench, where it actually shows a lot more, which is, you know, making them win here. So absolutely love this Bulls team. Watch out for this Bulls team, truly, folks. They are going to get it done. 3-game win streak. They have a little bit of a tough week coming up. I think they've got the Grizzlies coming up this week, so, you know, they are still going to have to earn their spot here at number 10, but they finally started to win here with Vucevic. They took like 3 games before, you know, they got on this winning streak to kind of figure everything out. Now that they're here, don't know if they'll ever lose. I think they're going to win out for the rest of the season. So Bulls at number 10. Watch out for the Bulls. Love it. Alrighty, new number 9 team. We are going to give it to the Hawks. Alrighty. They started at number 10. Coming into this week, we move them up 1 spot. So this last week, they beat the Pelicans twice and the Warriors, and then they lost to the Grizzlies. Not a great loss there. Some not even decent wins. I mean, I think the Pelicans were without, you know, their main people, but the way that the Hawks are playing and the way that they're getting great production from all their players, that's why we're going to keep them in the top 10. They're winning with Lou Williams. They just lost last night, unfortunately. That's when the loss against the Grizzlies came. But truly a little bit of an unfortunate loss there. But Trae Young and Clint Capella, they didn't have Clint Capella last night. Who did they have last night? Let's get back to here. Oh, no, they didn't even play last night. That was 2 nights ago. All right. But let's get back here. Either way. Hawks at number 9. Trae Young, Clint Capella can get it done. Lou Williams has been a great addition here for this squad. So he's getting their points production that they needed off the bench. That's why the Hawks weren't that great. They didn't have that great of a bench. But now that Lou Williams is there, he's really kind of shoring up this team. So we're going to keep the Hawks here in the top 10, even though not the greatest week. It wasn't anything great. Losing against the losing against the Grizzlies was kind of a bad loss there. No really great wins, but we're going to give them another week here. Let's see what they can do. Let's see if their kind of schedule gets a little bit harder, and let's see if they can start winning against kind of these better teams coming up this week. So we'll have the Hawks at number 9. Alrighty, new number 17. We move them up. What do we got? One spot here. The new number 8 team is going to be the Mavericks. Alrighty. Kristaps Porzingis, Luka Doncic, obviously the 2 best weapons there. They're getting it done. In the last week, they went 4-1. They beat the Knicks, the Wizards, the Jazz, and the Bucks. The Bucks, obviously, without Giannis. And then they did lose to the Rockets. Losing against the Rockets was definitely a bad loss there. But 4 wins here this week. I'll give it to them. Kristaps Porzingis, Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic is just getting it done it's truly almost impossible to stop him. And Tim Hardaway Jr. coming off the bench, he's actually, I would say he's 6th Man of the Year candidate, folks. This man's having great production off the bench here. He's getting you those 15 to 19 points a game, which this Mavs team needs, because kind of without, Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis, we don't get a lot of consistent scoring potential from really anybody else except for Tim Hardaway Jr. coming off the bench. So they've got a decent squad here. They're winning games. They're like 7-3 in their last 10, so they are consistently winning games. And, Luka Doncic, until people can start stopping this man, we're going to keep this team in the power rankings. So we got the Mavs at number 8. Alrighty, now let's go to the new number 7 team, and this is a new team here in the top 10, and we're giving it up for the Grizzlies, folks. Yes, sir. They're now, 3 games above 500, the best spot they've been in all season, I'm almost certain. They're currently the number 8th seed here in the West, and they've also played a lot less games than other players, or than other teams have. A lot of their games have gotten canceled there at kind of that front part of the season, so they've been slowly making those games up. Or I don't know if they made the games up yet, but they will. So, this record here, they're going to be playing more games, at the end of the season than, some of these other teams are. So watch out for this Grizzlies team. 7-3 in their last 10, 4-game winning streak. Absolutely fantastic. Their wins this week, beating the Timberwolves, the 76ers, the Heat, and the Hawks. So very decent, solid wins out there. The 76ers, I think they won without Joel Embiid. So definitely could have been a little bit of a better win, but they beat the Heat and the Hawks, and that's what I'm about. Some solid competition there, so very well done to this Grizzlies team. John Morant's getting it done. Vucevic is getting it, or Valanciunas is getting it done. Grayson Allen's even having some really kind of great scoring nights as well. So Grizzlies, they are impressing me. Coming off their bench, a little lackluster. That's where this Grizzlies team falls apart just a little bit. Their bench, they're not that deep or don't have that kind of star power off the bench. But Dylan Brooks still gets it done in the starting lineup. So they've really got a nice starting lineup out there. They're getting it done defensively. They're getting it done offensively. They can put up the points. They can hold you to points. So this Grizzlies team, watch out. All season long, they've been kind of 1 game above 500, then a game below 500, then back to 500, then back below 500 by a game, then back up above 500 by a game. But they've kind of gotten it figured out after this trade deadline. Like we said, a 4-game winning streak. They're 3 games above 500. I don't think they've been that high above 500 all season. Everything is coming right for this Grizzlies team. So we're going to pay them some respect here. Put them at the number 7 seed here in our power rankings. Let's see if they can continue to kind of get better, continue to kind of do what they've been doing, and which is winning games. And let's see if they can kind of climb this ladder here in our power rankings. But very good showing this week. We move them up to number 7. Alrighty, number 6, we are going to leave the 76ers here at the number 6 position. This last week, they went 2-1. They beat the Timberwolves and the Celtics, losing to the Grizzlies. Once again, the Grizzlies getting the win here against one of these top 10 teams. So this 76ers team, they haven't had Joel Embiid. He came back for a game, then was out for a game, then was back. He's back tonight. Or no, he was back the last game. But yeah, the 76ers team, we're going to leave them at number 6 just because, the in and out of, when they have Joel Embiid, they're very good. When they don't have Joel Embiid, they're still decent. They can still be kind of, the average to below average teams kind of consistently without Joel Embiid. But let's see if the 76ers with a full week of Joel Embiid back finally, not, missing a game in a game, then back in. The starting lineup is absolutely fantastic. I love it. Joel Embiid is obviously fantastic. We all know this. Tobias Harris is so freaking consistent, and he also steps up when Joel Embiid is not there. Danny Green this past week and a half has been absolutely lights out from 3, which is the only thing we need him to do. The 3 is the defense. Ben Simmons' defense, absolutely always there. And then we just need Seth Curry. Seth Curry is honestly the weakest link in the starting lineup, but when he's on, watch out for this team. Then you got Dwight Howard coming off the bench, getting 9 rebounds in 4 minutes off the bench. Is just absolutely great play by him. And Shake Milton can be that kind of other scorer if you need another scorer besides Tobias Harris and Danny Green and Joel Embiid and Seth Curry. If they're not getting it done, you can rely on Shake Milton coming off the bench. So the 76ers team has one of the best starting lineups in the league, and they've got some nice bench pieces. They're not they're not the deepest team, but they're not deep. They got solid pieces out here that can kind of make up for the lack of production from the starters. If you need rebounds, you got Dwight Howard. If you got scoring, if you need scoring, you got Shake Milton. So 76ers, we'll say at number 6 here for this week. Alrighty, new number 5 team, because we told y'all the Blazers are no longer here at number 5. So the new number 5 team, taking a little bit of a step back here, is going to be the Jazz, moving down from 4 to 5. So the Jazz this week have beaten the Bulls, the Magic, and the Blazers, but then they lose to the Mavericks and the Suns. So not great losses there for this Jazz team, especially against the Suns. The Suns and the Jazz are fighting for that number 1 seed in the West, and the Clippers are making their way up as well. But the Jazz here at number 5, their starting lineup is great, and they have Jordan Clarkson. He can get you the 19 points off the bench, which is just absolutely fantastic. You got Joe Ingles coming off the bench. The starting lineup of Bogdanovich and Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley, it's absolutely fantastic. That starting lineup is truly great. Donovan Mitchell's been clutch as clutch can be this season. So it's just kind of this last week here, losing to the Suns. That's who their rival is, so we have to kind of move them back for that loss alone, and that's kind of why they're just moving back. They're very a solid team. They can, on any given night, they can beat any given team. They can do that, but for right now, what we've been seeing for this kind of last week and a half here for the Jazz is just they seem very good, but they seem kind of the worst of the best teams here. It's they can't beat, I don't know, what we've just said. The best teams this week that they beat were the Blazers, which is a good win, but then, the Mavericks and the Suns, which, we have them better than the Blazers right now. So this Jazz team, yes, they're good, but we need to see them start to beat some of these better teams, these top teams in the East and the top teams in the West, and until they do that, we have to keep on dropping them back. So number 5, it's a very solid spot here in the power rankings, but for this absolutely stacked Jazz team, it's a little bit of an underwhelming performance. And when they have to beat that Nuggets team, when they have to face that Nuggets team, man, we know they flounder because the Nuggets are truly their kryptonite. Any big, solid shooting center that can shoot the 3 very well gives the Jazz team trouble, just because Rudy Gobert can't really guard the perimeter that much. That's what really kind of hurt him against the Suns. They were really kind of manipulating Rudy Gobert into getting kind of in between the zone of blocking down low or on the perimeter, and that's where Chris Paul would just hit some nice floaters over him. They were able to hit some nice 3s on him. Jay Crowder can hit the 3. DeAndre Ayton can hit the 3. It's unfortunate for Rudy Gobert out there. So do have to drop the Jazz back a spot here to number 5. Alrighty, new number 4 team, and man, oh man, truly unfortunate, truly unfortunate, but we do have to move this team back a little bit here, and for some certain reasons, so let's talk about it. The Suns are dropping from 3 to 4. If the Suns just beat the Clippers last night, we would have moved the Suns up to number 1. We would have had no problem because they would have just beaten the Jazz, and then the very next night, they had to go on the road and beat the Clippers. Unfortunately, they kind of floundered at the back end of that fourth quarter. They were kind of in it all game, just couldn't close it out. Unfortunately, Paul George was clutch as heck. Rondo was clutch as heck, able to beat the Suns last night. So we do have to move the Suns back a little bit because we have to make way for the number 3 team, and for a head-to-head matchup, I'm going to give it to the winner. So unfortunately, the Suns have to move back a little bit here. They're absolutely fantastic. Chris Paul is playing out of his mind. Devin Booker has been playing out of his mind as well. Not last night, but for the last week and a half, the man's been putting up 35 points a game, just getting it done. Absolutely very well done against the Jazz. It was absolutely fantastic. DeAndre Ayton and Jay Crawford, a great duo there. The DeAndre Ayton can get it done down low. Jay Crowder is still hitting those big threes and still being great defensively. They've got a solid bench of Dario Saric and Cameron Payne and Cameron Johnson who can all give us 10 plus points on a nightly basis off the bench, and that's kind of what the Suns team needs. So the Suns are very good, don't get us wrong, but unfortunately they lost last night against the Clippers, which brings us up to number 3 and a huge jump here for the Clippers. Yes, sir. Not even being on the list coming into this week to being number 3 here. This last week has been absolutely fantastic for the Clippers. They've beaten the Blazers, they've beaten the Suns, and they've beaten the Lakers. Obviously, the Lakers is not that great of a win, but this Clippers team is really starting to shore it up here at the back half of the season. Going into last week as well, they're 8-2 in their last 10, so just absolutely fantastic here for them, getting it done, shoring it up. Paul George, he's been absolutely fantastic here this last week. He just put up 30 plus points against the Suns last night. Like I said, he would automatic from 3. I think he missed 1 3 on 8 attempts last night, just getting it done. Kawhi Leonard is getting it done, and that new addition of Rondo, playoff Rondo, is officially here, folks. We saw he was struggling. Who was he with? Where was Rondo before he got traded to the Clippers? The Hawks, but they weren't even using him, and he wasn't even having any success out there. But now he's on a championship contender team. He knows what it takes to win. He's got some great shooters around him that he can facilitate the floor with, and that's exactly what he did last night against the Suns. So Clippers, got to put them here to number 2, number 3. They're getting it done. We can start respecting this Clippers team for shoring it up here at the back half of the season. Hey, that's when it counts, man. I know we've been kind of knocking the Clippers because of the load management of Kawhi and just kind of the inconsistencies in their lineup and, not having a great big. We like Serge Ibaka, but, of just kind of the points and the rebound, he's a little underwhelming, and kind of these other bigs of Jokic and what Rudy Gobert can do, what Montrezl Harrell is doing off the bench for the Lakers, what Clint Capella is doing, what Vucevic is doing, what Joel Embiid is doing, what DeAndre Ayton is doing. So it's just compared to all these other bigs, Serge Ibaka is still good out there, don't get us wrong, but compared to what everybody else is doing at that 5 position, it's a little underwhelming. Zubac's nothing great. He's solid once again, but compared to everybody else, he's a little lackluster. They just got DeMarcus Cousins, but so the Clippers this entire season have been kind of injury-ridden, load management-ridden, never really getting it all together. But here we go, 8-2 in their last 10, shoring it up. Everybody's kind of playing together now. We're getting Rondo on the team, acclimating him, and Paul George is having some great nights. So we'll give the Clippers the number 3 seed here. Let's see if they can keep it up. Every time we kind of, believe in the Clippers, they really kind of take big steps back. So hopefully they don't do that this week, and we'll praise them at number 3 here for this week. Alrighty, and that brings us to the number 2 and number 1, and I think we're going to have a little bit of a switch here, baby. Let's get a new number 1 team here this week. So let's give it up for the Nets at number 2 and the Nuggets at number 1. But let's talk about the Nets first here well, you know what? Let's go to the Nuggets first. Let's talk about the Nuggets first at number 1 and why we're putting them at number 1 for this week. Well, they're 3-0 this week, beating the Magic, the Pistons, and the Spurs. Now, not great wins, but they went undefeated this week while the Nets did not. So that's really the only reason why we're making the switch here. We still don't have James Harden back in that lineup there. I mean, hands down, this Nets team is deep, and they're absolutely great. Don't get us wrong, but we're going to give it up to the Nuggets this week for going undefeated. They were very, very close of last week of getting number 1, but we held them out because we wanted to see what they would do this week. Great showing this week against not great competition. I get it, but hey, we're not going to knock you for what you're supposed to be doing out here. And Aaron Gordon in this lineup has not lost a game. Now, this Nuggets team isn't that deep. They got Paul Millsap off the bench. That's really it. And the only reason why he's going to be successful off the bench is because he's been in a starting lineup the entire season. So he knows what production he needs to have out there. But I mean, man, oh man, this starting lineup of Jamal Murray and Jokic and Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon, and nobody's production is taking a hit of Aaron Gordon getting into the starting lineup. How crazy is that? Michael Porter Jr. is still putting up 20 points a game on efficiency from 3. Jamal Murray is still putting up 20 points a game and like 7 assists. Jokic is still getting, 25 plus points out there. The big old rebounds, the big old assists, still spreading the floor with the 3. So this Nuggets team is absolutely great in their starting roster. Now, where they fall a little bit behind is their bench, but they've been showing us that they don't even need to use their bench on this nice 7-game win streak that they're on with Aaron Gordon. They're just getting it done with the starting roster. So we're going to give this Nuggets team a week at number 1. Let's see if they can keep it up here. Hopefully they don't flounder. So we'll keep them at number 1. So we'll move them to number 1. And then for the Nets, I mean, they did finally get Kevin Rampak, which, I mean, the league is on notice now. The man just shot 100% his first game back of not playing an entire freaking season. How wild. 5 shots, folks. 5 shots, 17 points, 100%. No big deal. So, and they're deep. We all know they're deep. Kyrie Irving's fantastic. James Harden's great. Potential MVP candidate if he can kind of be healthy and be back out on the floor. He may be missing a little bit too many games here. So, Nets at number 2. They are very deep. They did lose against the Bulls this week, though. So, that's the only difference between the Nets and the Nuggets this week alone. The Nets have a loss. The Nuggets don't. We move the Nuggets up to 1. I want to see what they can do. We're giving them a chance here at number 1. Do not let us down, Nuggets. We love that Nuggets team. So, this is the power rankings going into this week. Bulls at 10, Hawks at 9, Mavs at 8, Grizzlies at 7, 76ers at 6, Jazz at 5, Suns at 4, Clippers at 3, Nets at 2, and Nuggets are the best team in the NBA. Big high hopes on the Bulls this week. Big high hopes on the Nuggets this week to kind of claim their spots or for the Bulls to move up a little bit. Don't want to see the Clippers kind of flounder after we just put them at number 3. And let's see how the Jazz and the 76ers can do here at 6 and 5. All right, for like outside looking in, obviously the Heat are outside looking in. I mean, it really just came down to, who you played this week and who you beat this week for them to kind of get inched out of the starting or of the top 10. So, I mean, for the East, I mean, the Heat are really the only team outside looking in. Maybe the Celtics, we have to see a little bit more of them consistently. If they kind of want to get acclimated, we got to see Evan Fournier back from this COVID-19 thing. So the Heat are outside looking in for the East. And then for the West, what do we got? Maybe the Blazers. But, I mean, this week has really left a sour taste in my mouth for them, unfortunately, truly. And then that's really it. That's really it. Basically just the Heat outside looking in, honestly. And then maybe the Blazers if they can kind of turn it around this week. So we'll see what happens this week. And then we'll update our power rankings next Friday, folks. So we'll see what happens with the top 10. All right.